Well, the hour being 3 o'clock, I'll call this meeting of agenda and priorities for Town Council for Innisfail, this 15th day of March, 2021. We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or deletions requested? No? And would someone like to move we adopt this agenda as submitted?
Also move, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Barkley. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. First thing on the agenda, 3.1 is the ECC COVID-19 verbal report from CAO.
Just
Becker.
really brief, Mayor and Council. With the recent announcements that we heard from the government and the Chief Medical Officer, really there's any adjustments to our operations accordingly. So we do know that retail has been adjusted to 25% of fire code occupancy, and libraries, of course, which is now opened, is 15% of fire code occupancy. But as we chatted about with ECC, I think it's still 90 people can still go into the library, so it's pretty large. Other than that, I don't have anything further to report.
Okay. All right. If there's no questions, would someone like to move we accept the report for information?
Your worship, I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to 3.2, Director Jenkins.
All right, thank you. So we're looking to determine some next steps with council with respect to the update of the Innisfail Red Deer County Inter-Municipal Development Plan. So back in February 2020, the Inter-Municipal Committee with the town and Red Deer County met for the first time in a number of years. Our discussion focused on a review of the historical relationship between the town and county, a review of our existing IDP, as well as the joint development agreement, and an outline of some next steps, with administration being directed to review the current documents and identify some timelines and budgets for their update, as well as the exploration of some potential grant opportunities for regional cooperation. So a next meeting of that committee had been intended to take place later in the spring of last year. However, the COVID-19 pandemic delayed the meeting. Staff did continue to work together to develop a draft IDP that would update and modernize the existing document. If council is in agreement, we could formally begin this spring with a new committee meeting, followed by a public engagement process for the potential adoption of an updated IDP in the fall of 2021. Public engagement for a plan of this nature is largely focused on county landowners within the town's future growth area. However, we would be soliciting input from town residents as well. So the completion of an IDP update in 2021 would be beneficial to the town as a precursor to the potential update of our town's municipal development plan. Our MDP has not been comprehensively updated since 2007. The IDP has not been updated since 2006. So the county administration has had a discussion similar to this with county council last week. And essentially the county has indicated that they are comfortable moving forward with an IDP update if the town is also of the same opinion. However, they were very clear that there's no pressure if we aren't wanting to do that at this time. That's fine with them as well. But yeah, I guess looking for some input, it would be nice to get this document kind of updated. As administration, we probably got a little further down the draft revision train than we would have, just because there was some time and the meetings weren't taking place. So we've worked through a lot of the policy changes that we think would need to be looked at. So the next step would really be looking at scheduling an intermunicipal committee meeting, likely in April, and then getting direction from the committee jointly to commence the IDP update process.
Okay. Director Jenkins has put in a recommended motion here. Is anyone prepared to make that motion at this time?
I'd so move, your worship. The council supports continuing the process to update the Innisfail Red Deer County Inter-Municipal Development Plan, including the scheduling of an inter-municipal committee meeting to review draft policy changes and subsequent public engagement process.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Discussion. I think your comments there certainly make sense. That we've got to get a draft copy and get things, put our heads together and see if there's anything else we need, and have that meeting. Make sure we have that meeting this year with the county. But anyways, no other discussion. Oh, Councillor Bates.
Yes, I certainly support that, and I find it ironic that it's this last one was done at the same time as this brochure that I just had sent through to you folks back in 06.
Okay, I'll ask the question then. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to surplus discussion. I believe that's Director Weimark.
Thank you, Your Worship. So you have some documentation that was placed before you came. So the first one is going to talk about the most funding. So this was the funding that the province gave to municipalities to work through COVID. We have to have it spent or allocated by at least March 31st. So that's why I'm here. So I did a small breakdown. We were allocated $799,579. Reallocated recreation revenue loss. That's the aquatic, the arena, and any programmings that we had in place. Equal $297,546. The tax and utility penalties that we chose not to charge was $95,532. COVID wages and expenses for the year of 2020 was $289,610, and COVID wages and expenses to date are $39,951. So out of that remaining funds, it left $76,940. So there was always talk about what we could do with remaining money and getting back into the community along those lines. It always is very difficult to see who we can reach to get it all out there, but we did look at some library memberships, perhaps pool passes, but we really zoned in on mental health and well-being. So this is something where the money would go to FCSS. They would look at such things as counseling sessions, guest speakers related to COVID, financial advice through COVID, and perhaps coping with stress through COVID. We felt that would go out well to the community. Of course, if council has any other things they'd like to look at or address, this is the moment in time to have that discussion.
Okay, any comments? Councillor Bates.
Yeah, through to Director Weimark. So the funds that you've already tagged, did they take us through to the end of March, or where did they take us?
No, just to the end of December 31st. The
and
only
that's
thing
all-
we carried through was
and that's
COVID
all-
wages and expenses, not the revenue. So this budget, we ended at that December 31st budget. This budget of 2021 does not have, we will track anything that comes along and keep track of it, and the possibility again that we get more funding. But no, we used as December 31st for the recreation revenue and for the tax and utility payments.
And that would be the end of when it was eligible for those.
We could have used some portion of the first quarter. I chose not to. And if council would like me to go back and do some of that, that's certainly up to you. It was more me looking at what funds I could possibly get out to the community to use for COVID for that type of thing. Because it would have ate it all. 76,000 would have been nothing for the first quarter to put to revenue.
Ken, do you have any option to like put it in a little any portion of it in a little reserve to say, in case something come up that we missed?
No,
And then,
We
and then,
cannot do that. It must be
and then
spent.
move it,
Yeah.
if it wasn't, move
No.
it, move
We
the
cannot use
balance.
it for future spending at all.
No,
That
no,
is-
no, I was wondering if it, in case it was something that we missed up to December 31st. And then if you were able to release like a portion of it today or to whatever we decide where it goes, and then finish it off.
It has to be used for anything we've spent up to March 31st.
Okay, no. don't
I
think you're
get what
making
you're
much-
saying for what may come.
No, for something we might have missed.
Correct. That if we missed it, then I've missed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, okay, so we would, I assume, discuss this and then actually release it near March 31st, which is almost now anyway, but
Correct. This is in the form to
we're
come
probably
back.
talking next council meeting.
I'll be coming back for a resolution, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yes, your worship.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you. Has there been obviously any discussions as to what portions that we might entertain for all three, or is it just predominantly all going to FCSS, or has there been that deep of discussions yet?
No.
Okay.
So
That's
I
what this
wanted,
is?
this is what we're here for.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to see where council was thinking and what they wanted that to look like. And then we could go into what dollars and bring that forth for a resolution next Monday. But yeah, I wanted to see where council was at in their thought process.
Yeah, and I guess one of the questions I had is, if I remember correctly through some of our discussions with Karen, that there was, even if there was dollars found for counseling, that there may not be enough counselors here. So I'm just wondering if, if those are, even if we allocate these dollars, once they're put into, let's say, FCSS's hands, do they have a timeline of when they need to spend them? Okay.
No. So because of who they are in the department in which they do that, it would look like the town is issuing that department a check via the government to run that, and then she would have the time to allocate it. So we're allocating it to FCSS regarding whether it's mental health or what that might look like. Now because she is a different identity. So FCSS has their own financial reporting. Along those lines, everything they report different than we do through the town. She now has the capabilities to use that money going forth.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
the town themselves gave it to a organization per se.
Mhm.
Now she has the time to use to do.
Yeah, and I guess my opinion to council would be that a good bulk chunk would be given to FCSS, and I still think that it would be valuable to put some memberships and pool passes out in the community. I think that would be a good gesture, but knowing the power and the things that FCSS can do, I would rest quite easy knowing that it would be best spent in their hands.
Your
Councillor
worship, through to Director
Bartlett?
Weimark, the money has to be out the door by the end of March.
Correct.
Okay, because I think it was back in budget or shortly after we spoke about possibly some, could we use some of this for some grants for businesses that are struggling? Like I think of gymnasiums, I think more than anything, right? They're
Right. Yeah.
kind of,
And you can still direct me to do that.
Okay.
That means we would have something in place that it was going to go to that.
Yeah.
And we can report in that format.
okay, have you looked into that at all? Like I know some other communities have done some things and I mean, it's complex and I'm not sure how it would all
Yeah.
work, but.
It was tough
Yeah.
looking at them. For me, I was looking more global community. I wasn't focusing on just individual ones. And I felt that Olds did get a little bit of response for theirs, but not a great response. So I went of the concept of where the best use of those funds would be on a community
Sure.
as a whole.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Thank you.
Councillor Reber.
Through to Director Weimark, I think I would agree basically with what Councillor Hill's comments that I think the library memberships and the pool passes we should allocate something to those. I know the library is way down on memberships because of course that's something you do when you walk into the library, not if you're doing curbside or that type of thing.
Mhm.
But I think you've come up with the right answer given the bulk of the money to FCSS.
Your worship, through to Director Weimark, the only question that I have is, could FCSS look after the total 76,000 and allocate to memberships at the library and also to the pool, rather than us allocating the number, just let it sit with FCSS? Would that be?
Yeah,
appropriate?
that would be my intention, is to give it to them with a premise of, we'd like to see some pool passes, we'd like to see some library memberships come out of it, and then what else they could fit within those, the dollar value.
Community
Thank you.
mental health. is
Yeah.
Certainly a factor these days. Councillor Bates?
Yep, so now that we got to there, I would agree that that sounds like a good idea, because I know a small amount of money to the library and the pool passes would just get distributed, but a small amount of that to the library would be very beneficial to them, I think. So, thank you.
Okay, everyone has had a chance to speak. And I'll ask I guess we haven't actually had a motion yet, have we?
I'm actually, it's just for information, your worship. I'm not
So-
looking for a resolution at this
Okay,
point. in time.
all right, then I won't worry about it. Then I was thinking we might have a motion for information, but
I'll move that we accept it for information,
Thank you.
so you can bring it back to us. Thank you.
all right, any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. All right,
Okay.
Director Weimark.
The
so-
next one near and dear to my heart is surplus. So you are going to see the year-end report come next Monday with this surplus amount attached to it. So we ended up with 955,682 in surplus. So I have put down some considerations that our staff, the SLT, was looking for some funding. Of course, we have the heliport in there for 440,000 because it was not in budget at the time when we did budget. We need some work done in the pool showers of 28,000. We are looking at our QMP and what that expansion might look like and what we might need to do there. So we'd like to allocate $20,000 towards that. We are giving the ski hill a request, not as their request, but 35,000 is in there to give towards the ski hill. Operations would like to look at some intersect painting, 3 in total for approximately 30,000. And then the heliport operating manual has already been allocated out of the surplus. It was brought forth before for 10,000. Once that's all said and done, I would look at the remaining funds, of course, to go to the facility reserve. I'm back where I was at budget time, wanting to build that reserve up. That would give it another good injection of about 400 and some thousand. With going forward, tentative funds that we might receive in future years, MSI of 2022, we're going to look at approximately 1.2 million versus our 1.6 this year. MSI for 2023 is tentatively looking at 847,000. So this is a drastic drop compared, and we knew that. I know you guys have sat through the budget. So we need to be somewhat prepared for this. Each year we look between 4 and 6 million in capital. So 1.2 does barely skims the bucket of that. So we look at our reserves at 14 million, which is that reserve sheet is in your stuff there. 14 million sounds like a lot. However, when you are only getting 847,000, those reserves are going to drop drastically once that comes around.
The one question I have, Director Weimark, on the, you show the federal gas tax at for 22, but you don't show one for 23. Is that?
They're not really talking about it. That's the Fed side, and that budget hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
So I'm hoping when that comes, we'll hear what that looks
Yeah.
like. There is not really, there's no rumbling yet on what the federal gas.
Because I can't see them getting away with 469,000 total in 22.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
So we do know some costs that are coming up in 2022 for sure. We have a lift station and our road replacement that we have scheduled, and that's coming in at 1.7. 37th Street is another one that we need to look at because of the Building Canada grant. So we might be looking at forwarding that one through, and we're going to be looking for 425,000. And we still have the RCMP, which I've never put on of what could happen in the budget, but we know this back pay is going to come sooner or later. So I've added that number in there because 212,000 is a big hit in a year as well. So I just wanted to have the numbers out there and what you could see, what's coming and what challenge we are going to have. And of course, I'm going to roll right into the tax component because it sort of blends in together of this conversation. So if I can leave surplus here for a minute, I want to go into tax talk. Taxes was a shock to me. It actually came in better than what we had expected. So that's always a bonus when it goes that direction and not the other. So we initially submitted in budget that we were going to take a loss of 124,000. We did not increase our tax line to accommodate that loss. We absorbed it in the budget. But when it actually came in and our actual numbers came in, we actually have a surplus of 195,000. So that was quite a bit different than what we had expected. So with that said, there are sheets attached. It is still, though, the assessments were quite a bit lower. The one component that gave us that increase was our solar farm. It actually came in quite a bit higher than even what we had, that the assessor had estimated in the first place. So while all assessments dropped, the solar farm is what gave us that extra increase. At 0% tax, if we leave it alone, you will notice that the little samples that we have in there, everybody has a credit. If we increase by 1%, still everybody has a little bit of a credit, except commercial side will take a little bit of adjustment. And of course, if you go up 1.5, still a little bit of credit on residential, but commercial will get the bulk of that. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't do the spiel and the rollout of never, ever, ever should we never do a tax increase. When the budget rolled out, the lovely provincial budget, Alberta councils, it is in there, repeat, repeat, and repeat that you should never go a year without doing a budget adjustment. With that said, if we did a 1% tax increase, individuals will still see a less tax bill.
Looking at the MSI chart, doesn't look very promising in the future. And I think that's something that we got to be preparing ourselves for sure.
I realize that a 1% is only 77,000. I understand that, but it's a start to, my fear is if we don't do a tax adjustment and next year or within the next 2 years, those assessments drastically change the other way, this will be a huge tax increase for us to meet what we need to meet. So the financial burden on a taxpayer of doing a 1% this year is not as hard on them as it would be if we had to do this after the assessments changed and went back up. Again, that's my financial of it. This is strictly up to council to make that decision. So what I wanted to do, now I'm going to go back to the other sheet. So on that other sheet, up for consideration, everything below 440,000, it adds up to approximately 123,000. The surplus that we got in on taxes for this year will pay for that. So if we leave that on our bottom line and the individuals that need to do these small projects, it will balance itself out. So I'm not requesting, if council wishes that, I would not request that to come out of your surplus. So basically what would come out of your surplus is the heliport, and the rest would go to, I have it in facility reserve or whatever reserve that you choose for that to go to. Then if you decide to do a 1% tax increase as well, my recommendation would be that needs to go to reserve for sure. That is what it's working towards. Now, I also understand COVID. I understand I can't go from one hand and say we need to do the well-being and the health and safety of the community and then come out and do a tax increase. I understand that thought process. However, this is probably the less damaging year to do it if we are looking at it that way. Now I'm open for discussion.
Well,
So are we discussing the surplus or are we discussing the whole thing or what are we discussing?
Let's start with tax. Let's start with tax first.
Well, seeing as I already turned my mic on, I'll just say that I tend to not want to increase taxes if we don't need it. That's just a guiding principle that I've always used, and posting the surplus and given the other unknowns and situations, once it's obvious to me that you need it, then you have good justification. And at this point, that's my tendency would be to not increase it if we don't need it.
Councillor Hill.
Thanks, Your Worship, for addressing me appropriately and letting me speak. I personally think that if the writing's on the wall, essentially, that there is going to be a shortfall in the years to come, and yes, there was a surplus. I can see that as well, but I think that if, as a taxpayer, if I'm not going to notice the hit, and I know that it's going to be prolonging a bigger increase down the road that I potentially wouldn't be prepared for, I think that it definitely would be, I'd be in favor of entertaining some sort of an increase to set ourselves up for future seasons for sure. I know it's hard to see and hard to justify coming out of this, but it is, I feel, our role to look at the greater good for years to come. And a lot of, obviously, our citizens don't get to see these numbers for what the decrease are. Probably not very many are privileged to that knowledge or know. So I still feel it's looking out for our community in the long run to look at a potential tax increase. So.
Councillor Barclay.
Your Worship, through to Director Weimark, I'm not in favor of tax increase. The reason being, I felt when we went through budget that we chose to do user fee increases and franchise fees, et cetera, as opposed to a tax increase. And for 3 days, we talked about 0% tax increase. So I'm just not prepared to change that because we've done these other increases instead of. So.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarification, Director Weimart, I understand, or did I hear you correctly, that even at 1%, the money left in your jeans at the end of the day is going to be okay? Like, is it like, I guess, even with the 1% increase, is the tax bill at the end of the day going to be more than what they're paying?
It will never be more. It'll be either equal to or less.
Okay, well, then I would certainly support the 1%. I concur with Councillor Hill that, down the road, yes, it's none of us like increases, but I think either we sort of pay the piper today or we're going to pay him tomorrow. And I think, a 5 or 6% down the road is not as palatable as a 1% at this time with the money that's left in it's, I don't know if I can explain that properly, but I think I understand what you're saying is.
So just to clarify, that's
Yeah.
residential that would have, there'll be some commercial or industrial that may go up slightly at a 1%. I just want that clarified.
Okay. Yeah.
But residential, there will be, still at 1%, they will have a lower tax bill than they had in the past.
Because like I say, one day there's going to have to be an increase of whatever percentage, and it's probably going to be more than 1%. So I guess either we bite the bullet on this year, or we leave it for 2 years out and let somebody else worry about it. And I'm not prepared to do that. I think we responsibly, we need to look towards the future. And with all the things that we've been hearing from the feds, from the province, that it's an inevitable. So I would support the 1%.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Reber.
I think I would tend to agree that small steps, I don't have the summary in front of me, but our tax increases over the last 8 years have been negligible, very small. So I think I would be in favor of a 1%, just to try and keep ahead of it a little bit without too much pain to the taxpayers.
Councillor Bates?
So just having heard that again, but as I look at it, we have, it's my second term, we've never not posted a surplus. And this is a large one. There are a lot of uncertainties, and I think as Councillor Barkley reiterated that, you know, we did deliberate for 3 days and came to a conclusion, and I'm still of that frame of mind. So we're discussing at this point. We won't be making that decision today, but my thoughts are still that until we need it, until it's really apparent that we need it, and yeah, it just doesn't feel right to me to be doing it on spec, and I realize that people are going to be paying less, but it's because their properties are worth less and their assessments going down. So the other thing I think that's happening is the market is turning on real estate, and if everything stayed the same, probably their properties, hopefully their properties will be worth more next year, and they will experience a tax increase. So it's not right to say that they're not going to see one. And yeah, that's my further thoughts after hearing the other councillors speak. Thank you.
Councillor Hill?
Yes, and one of the things that drives me to some of my comments obviously are, we are advocating for a large investment within our community, and for, you know, a potential of a sports complex or of some way, shape, or form. And I know that in order to turn the pie in the sky to something that would be in our community, I do agree that, or I would say that there's going to be some significant dollars, even for just servicing that debt. So I know that in neighboring communities, when something like that came into their community, they had to endure a very large, you know, burden of the taxpayer with a large tax increase. So for me, I know that these dollars that are taken from the community would definitely be put back there. So that's kind of basically just for future as well. So that's just kind of my thought process on that. But I'm a little bit more torn after hearing some more of the comments of council.
In your worship, I agree with what Councillor Bates said, particularly around the property value issue. I know yesterday, I believe one of the realtors posted how many homes are for sale in Innisfail right now, residential, not non-res, so it just residential homes, and it's only, I don't know, 65 or something, I think was the figure, where a year ago it was, well, it's almost 3 times as many, 160 or something. So I think we see the market tightening. We're seeing sales take place in Napoleon Meadows and Bella Vista and stuff. So I agree. I mean, it's hard to project, but I see housing values going up because there's a supply demand issue. And I think, as far as I understand what Councillor Hill is saying with regards to a larger project, whether it's aquatic center upgrades or a multiplex, but we also accounted for some of that going forward in the budget in November, where we started a reserve account and put some money in from user fees. So I just think we're coming out of, let's hope, this COVID-19 thing. And it's just such a difficult time to put more pressure on people and yeah, I agree with Councillor Bates. Hopefully next year the housing prices will be up and that will accommodate for some tax increase. Thank you.
Okay, I think everybody's had an opportunity to speak. I just, of the feeling, this is almost looking at this MSI situation, and it's not a lot different than what we were exposed to when we were going to a regional wastewater system. We had a couple of years of warning, but we knew that our wastewater treatment cost was going to go from about 600,000 a year doing our own plant to about $3 million. So we had the sense to at least build some reserves to lessen the impact for that happening. And I know other communities, one in particular, and I'm not going to say the name, but didn't do anything, and then got hit by front pages, big sewer bill, and this type of thing. So they didn't, that's what can happen. So I'm of the agreement. I know it doesn't look like we need the extra reserves, but we're looking at the good potential of $1 million less from MSI and gas tax situation. That's going to put a big kink in our capital budget process. So, I think it's prudent to set aside a little more money because we know this is going to happen next year. I mean, it doesn't really bother me because I won't be here next year. It'll be your problem, not mine. But I'm just trying to set up for I don't want to burden the next council with that kind of a, weight loss or weight gain. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents. So we've had enough time to discuss it. No, we can't make a motion to that effect, but can we give administration some indication, or what would you suggest, Mr. CAO?
Just that, your worship, provide Heather some indication of how she should structure her next week's report, and then of course the tax rate bylaw as well.
Okay, I guess I want to be fair to council at this point. There'd be no vote other than to ask administration to come back with a modified game plan with a 1% increase for consideration. That makes sense? Would someone like to make that motion?
Actually, your worship, could Director Wymark also bring back next week then the other increases that we did through franchise fees and water rates and?
Oh, through the budget?
Yep.
Yeah,
please.
absolutely.
Okay. All in favor of did we get that motion? No. Need a motion.
Your worship, I would make the motion with the attachments of the request of Councillor Barkley as well.
Okay. Thank you. Well, just to come back with a proposal for consideration. We can't vote on it today, but just to keep the ball rolling. You're not wasting your time. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. The vote is 4-2. All right.
So now I want to go back to surplus.
Okay.
So first is the small items. I guess I'm looking to see if council is in agreement to just use the surplus, the additional tax dollars that we got this year to offset those.
I would be in favor of doing that, but I have a question for Director Kennedy
Oh, there you go.
on the intersection painting. Is that different than we did it last time? Because I don't think we had very much success on it last time around. Is this going to be more permanent?
It will be different. We did, unfortunately, before my time, had a bad contractor that did not do a very good job. So this would be to obviously a different contractor, And we have budgeted for 3 intersections, so this would just finalize the whole Main Street sections to get all the intersections done. Because we had only budgeted for 3.
Your worship, through to Director Kennedy, we talked at budget about maybe some colors other than white. Is that a possibility?
We can look at that, if you guys like, yeah, moving
Maybe
forward. First,
Turquoise or color.
I guess what we were
Color us
thinking
up.
is potentially is to look at some type of patterning on the white. So,
Okay.
so that it's not something that can be managed in the future if we need to just paint over.
Are you doing down by the Legion as well, like the cross 49th Street?
So that wasn't
Between the
budgeted for this year.
cenotaph? Yeah.
This year we had only budgeted for 52nd, 51st, and 50th.
Okay.
So this is looking for that allocation to finish the remaining
'Cause
intersections.
I did see photo someplace of somebody doing kind of a poppy crosswalk thing. So
Councillor Hill.
Yes, and I might be the only one in the room that doesn't know what QMP is, but could I get that explanation, please?
I'll start, Your Worship. So we are affiliated with the Alberta Safeties Council, it's a provincial department. We are required, we have a QMP, council approved quality management plan. And our discipline is fire and also through building, electrical, plumbing, and gas. So just to give you an idea, so Manager Leith looks after the fire component of the QMP, and Director Jenkins looks after the QMP regarding building. So right now, as per council's strategic priority of a safe community, administration is doing some research to, and we talked about this, geez, about 6-7 months ago regarding the QMP and making adjustments to that on inspections, and just making sure our businesses and rotation of inspections are meeting the need and vision of council. But we're just looking at potentially some resources to do additional upping our service levels regarding inspections.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Bates.
So I'll just add to that question though a little bit. So is that a one-time or is that?
Your Councillor Bates, it'd be an ongoing adjustment. Right now, we're building a business case for council consideration. Potentially some adjustments. It could be offset by some adjustments on rates and fees to help offset that cost. But due to some of the nature of what we're finding in the inspections, we're looking to come back to council, identifying an immediate need for that service level adjustment.
Okay, so that would be added to future budgets. So just going down that list, like, and of course, again, I've seen this before with surpluses. So, you know, we debate some of these things item for item between surpluses and anguish over where we're going to get funding. But so then the heliport, for instance, would you just, I'll just run down, and so the heliport, that would do it, and then you wouldn't do all the fundraising or whatever. And then the pool showers, that's just like, absolutely, now we can do them. The ski hill, we were going to ask, I think, for some engagement as to what the request was. Is that the request we got?
Correct.
Okay, because I don't think that was that previously presented to us? Because I don't remember it, but
Probably come Monday then.
I don't remember that number, but, and I don't have a problem with it. It's just that, and the intersection painting 3 in total. Is that 3 in total, or is that all the ones along Main Street, or?
So we're requesting 3 in total. Yeah.
Okay,
So I can answer the heliport one. So we brought it to council and we had that discussion whether you wanted community involvement or not. But the question was asked to you, are we going to do it regardless of community input or not, and you all agreed that yes, you would.
Okay.
So worst case scenario, I have to budget for what that's going to look like. If we get to that, we get a community involvement and we get support from, this would stay in your other reserve and it would be allocated to something different when that came along, but we have to do worst case scenario.
Right, okay, so some of it might, okay,
Yeah, you might not spend that. That is the money that we need, whether it comes from us or comes from an outside source, but we need to budget for that accordingly.
However, Heather, council could say this budget 220 with the expectation that public fund the rest. That's council's decision.
Absolutely. Yeah.
or you can still say that and say whatever we raise goes back to reserves.
Correct.
I don't have a problem with that, just as long as it's defined, because we're hitting some of these things in progress. And like I say, unless I totally missed it, I hadn't heard the ask from the ski hill on it. It's not a problem. I just hadn't heard it. Thank you.
Just on the ski hill. So we did receive a formal request and it'll be in your correspondence for Monday. That included that 35,000 as well as an ask for some other in-kind donations that we've coordinated through operations.
Okay, any other questions regarding that surplus? All right, and then do you want an indication for information? Okay, would someone like to move we accept this proposal for consideration for information?
Also move.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Reber. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weimar. We next have 3.5, Capital Projects Director Kennedy.
So yeah, and thought we'd take this opportunity to just give council an update on all of the capital projects that we're currently working on. It's gonna be a real brief summary, as well as we did put a map together so that it just gives you a good idea of where we are around town, all the areas we're working, as well as gives the public an idea as well. So I'll start, I guess, just in the operational side, and then hand it over for the other departments. But currently, so we are working at the CP Rail pedestrian crossing and the Whistle Sensation. Unfortunately, we've hit a bit of a snag on that one where we haven't had much progress. So we're continue to inquire with CP Rail in regards to getting an update and get progress going on that one. So we are just plugging away at that one. I don't know. That's about the only update I have, unfortunately, for that one. So the Lagoon Remediation, we have submitted our remediation certificate to environment with a pretty positive feedback from environment that we should have hopefully a sign off here fairly quickly this year. So that'll be really good for the lagoons itself. The sewer and manhole relining. All we have left on that one for this year actually is about 16 manholes. We did manage to get all of the sewer pipe relining done last year for the 2-year project. So that one has progressed really well. 53rd Ave Reconstruction, that will start probably end of May and go through till probably August. Same with 46th Ave, another one end of May going into August. The 2020 surface improvements, primarily that's 57th Street and 38th Street. Those will be, both are gravel sections right now. 38th Street was the milled section that we reconstructed last year and put it to milling. So we will look at paving both of those surfaces this year. The 2021 mill and overlay program, primarily that's the 51st Avenue. Again, that'll be milled out, doing some curb replacement, and spot repairs, and then pave that one. The Res 2 generator, we have just engaged Tagish Engineering to do a pre-design on that one in order to get a good idea of how we can get a generator to fit, as well as work with John Manville because we do have them in that reservoir. So working collaboratively with them on a pre-design. The utility tractor that got awarded there last week. So we'll be ordering that. Max Playground, we've applied for a grant to try and get some more participation in that one. So we'll wait and hear back on that. 50th Street landscaping, the second phase. So that's the planters on the north side of 50th Street. We are progressing with that on design. That should be going out for tender within the next 2 weeks. Diamond 7 upgrades, again, progressing with quotes. We got 3 bidders. We're just dealing with some costing on those. And we're quite hopeful that we'll end up with some construction starting in May on that one. Wayfinding phase 3, that one we are just put on hold for now until we get some further clarification on solid terms of reference for that project. We are progressing with tree replanting. We've got a design going for 52nd Ave. That's the elms that we took off last year. And then Willow Ridge, we took some trees out there. So we are looking at doing some replanting there as well. I'll come forward with in regards to probably some design options that we're looking at for those 2 areas in the next couple of weeks here. The Sandy Dump upgrade, RV water fill station, those are together. We are looking at ordering a new, getting away from the coin operated machines and going with mainly debit and credit card and getting away from the coin fill. So we'll progress with that this summer. 2021 sidewalk replacements. We've got in our operating budget $100,000 for various sidewalk replacements. So we have got a plan together. We have hired Collins Concrete, who we've had the last 2 years doing that program. So once the weather gets better here and the frost comes out, we'll start on that program. The sanitary lift station assessments, we have engaged a contractor for that or consultant. So that's 8 lift stations that will be getting assessed throughout town. And that will be very valuable for us in order to budget in the future. Probably 6 out of the 8 are in really dire need to get some replacement. So this will give us a really good input into the money that we're going to need to spend on those lift stations because it is becoming very critical. 50th Street manhole replacements, that's we've allocated for a couple manholes. They are along the cemetery road and we need to get those replaced. They create an odor issue. So we'll be looking at that this summer. And then the skate park lighting upgrade. We are looking at installing 2 new lights at the skate park to try and brighten that up, as well as finalizing the landscaping. It's a chore to get landscaping around a skate park to grow. So we're going to look at some ideas there to try and get some grass growing in that area. So then I'll head over to Megan in the community services.
Can we just stop for 1 second, Your Worship? Sorry, Steve, Megan,
Yep.
just maybe a couple of questions.
Oh yeah, if you have questions.
Councillor Bates.
Yeah, so through to Director, the whistle cessation concerns me a little bit. Can we get some definition of what is left that they need? Not like right this minute, but I'd like to see that be top priority because I think I brought it up a little bit ago. I don't want to miss getting on it as soon as the ground is thawed and we can actually do something. And I guess the question, do we need to do the crossing to get whistle cessation? Do we need to is that a precursor?
No, the pedestrian crosser isn't a precursor, but we do have an upgrade at 42nd Ave to do.
Right, I knew we had to do that one.
And that is where we're stalling. We cannot get, they're the only ones that do the designs.
So they're
same with
just
pedestrian crossing.
You don't anticipate there's not something that's standing out as getting in the way other than them just proceeding? Is that?
Correct. We just can't get that final design and cost because we've came into this with, their estimates.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'd like to keep the heat on it as much as we could. And yeah, I drove across what they did last weekend and that's a disaster. I don't know.
I'm
I don't
hoping
know.
that's
I
temporary.
don't know how we get feedback to them, but they've managed to take a nice smooth crossing and turn it into almost as bad as the bypass down going one way by the
That,
south overpass. So
quick update on that. That is a temporary, they take the
The
boards
commute
out.
is temporary. yeah.
They have told us that they're gonna come back with the concrete crew to do the concrete as well as for the highway.
Okay,
That
thank
one
you.
will get done as well. So
Drop a whole
Thank you.
foot in.
I would certainly like to keep the pressure on as much as we can, at least make sure they know that one of council really wants to see the whistle cessation as soon as possible because of the frequency of the trains again, with the price of oil and everything else. Frequency, you can just tell it's picking up. Thank you.
Your worship, through to Director Kennedy, can you remind us on wayfinding phase 3? Are those like park signs and that kind of thing? And did it include the sign at the entrance of Innisfail at the Max McDonald's, or?
no, it did. That wasn't part of
Okay.
that wayfinding. This was in the master pedestrian, I can't remember the name of it now, but anyway, part of the third phase was going to be, we were looking at playground signage, some trail signage. But yeah, we are kind of up in the air right now exactly on what that terms will be. So we just want to make sure that we don't kind of get going in the wrong direction. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other question?
Hey, Steve, could you outline the partnership for the ball diamonds upgrade?
Sure. So we are in partnership with the Facilities Enhancements Committee, I believe is what they're called. So we are working in partnership with them. They have gotten a program together for some sponsorship. We met with them last week just to go through where we're at, what they're budgeting for, kind of taking their portion, as well as our portion to work together to get this project going. So working really good collaboratively together. It sounds like they've got a little bit of momentum on their donation program. So it is a positive program looking forward.
Okay, do you want to move on and over to the community services?
Okay, so I see we got some funky formatting in this column, but we'll try to keep it straight. So the first one's the Columbarium. So the new Columbarium was installed a couple of weeks ago. So that is completed. Library lighting upgrade. So this is the big lights in the library side. We have managed to do some changes in the community room side that make those lights more effective and turn on and off a little faster than they used to. And we're also looking at adding some lighting to the little children's area. So we're just getting quotes and working through that process. So hopefully those will be done this spring. The arena ice resurfacer, that's all ordered and in play. It's just a matter of when the machine arrives. Hopefully before the fall is what we're planning on. Arena dehumidifier. So that project is actually out for RFP right now. So hopefully we'll get some proposals and move ahead this spring. The roof repairs at the arena are completed, as well as the roof repairs at the Parks and Public Workshop. The pool drainage channel and the pool tile pool basin. Both of those projects were sort of sitting waiting to get a better indication from the HCMA project with respect to the which option we think we will proceed with. So those ones are sort of sitting. The urban design plan we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. North area structure plan, public engagement ended last week. So we should be looking to get a draft in the next couple of weeks and back to council for adoption. Same with the Dodds Lake Recreation Plan. We're anticipating a draft of that final report any day. Pool multiplex evaluation. We have a meeting with council scheduled for next Tuesday. And then we'll be bringing that summary of the survey results back to council in a public capacity. And then curling rink upgrades, there's been painting, roof lighting, repairs going on at the curling rink. So those are still in progress, but getting close to being completed.
Okay, any questions? I had a couple, Director Jenkins, the lighting at the, well, of course, this one, I'm sorry, this would have been Director Kennedy, but on your side, the the pool basin, urban and drainage channel, will those be items that can be done in a shutdown this summer? Is that what the intent is?
We'll have to decide on whether we want to proceed with those, depending on what those design
Yeah.
option determinations are, whether we want to go ahead with them based on the HCMA
Yeah.
project determination. So
Okay, and the lighting at the park, the board park, wait. Anyway, skateboard, that's the word I'm looking for. Skateboard park lighting, it definitely will have to be taken into consideration, the future of the heliport, the impact on our upgrades to the heliport. I think it's important that we get rid of this couple of old barber poles down there and an overhead line, and then get some good lighting set off to the north, further away from the helipad as much as we can. And then looking at it, I think something we might think about too, Director Kennedy, is the lighting on the north side of the parking lot of the pool parking lot. There's two structures there that I think should be moved, and not so much as moved as maybe the two that are there on the north side could be beefed up with more of a scan or spread type lighting, and just light it from the south side. So that gets those poles away from the helipad too. So I'm just thinking in the future, we want that thing to be as safe as possible when we're doing it. So get rid of every possible pole around there we can.
Yeah, part of the heliport design, we'll be looking at the lighting.
Yeah.
We have to do not only the existing surrounding lighting, but as well as the pad lighting as well. We have to update all of that as well.
Your worship, through to Director Kennedy, with respect to the skate park as well, the landscaping, you're right. It's hard to landscape, it seems. Grass seed goes down and the rain comes and washes down the hill. Are you looking at maybe some other ideas around that, and maybe no grass and would reduce mowing and that kind of thing?
So we did try two different methods last year. We tried a brilliant seed where it covers it. That didn't seem to want to catch. Then we did try hydro seeding it. Again, had some challenges. So yeah, we are definitely trying to think about some options of what we can do to try and get at least cover the mud up so that we aren't tracking the mud everywhere.
Have you thought about like things like landscaping rock or something like that instead of, or?
We haven't thought of landscaping rock, but we are, putting our heads together on trying to think of some innovative ways of making some grass grow, or some other ideas for sure.
I'll pass it over to the landscaping person.
I don't know anybody. Councillor Bates.
Oh, okay.
Or
Thank
Councillor.
you. Once
Go with
again, Your
Councillor.
worship. Yeah, I just had a couple questions about, because one of the things that obviously I know was identified, and it'll probably be in that manual or whatever comes from the heliport plan, but don't all the lights have to be was that night vision sensitive as well? That was an idea, something that was brought up, that there's a bunch of deficiencies with that. I just was wondering if that was correct or my mind was off.
I don't know the particulars about the lighting, but yeah, we will have an analysis done on all the lighting. I know one of the couple of the things that is in regards to the wraps around the poles, and that type of stuff, but we'll definitely have a full analysis done.
Yeah, and then the other thing that was has been done in other parks, and it's some of that, and there's actually a business in town that I believe still does it for that recycled rubber repair, and you can get all different colors, as well as some very blocky looking, whatever it may look like. I'm sure they could do a skateboard or something like that, and whatever it might look like. So if there's any questions after the meeting, I can provide you with the name who I think still does that, but it seems to be quite popular and it's pretty responsible because it's just recycled rubber, right? So,
Yeah, we actually put that in over at the horseshoe pits.
Mhm.
oh,
We
okay.
use that as well. So yeah, that's appreciate the.
Yeah, just an idea. Thank you.
Councillor Bates.
Yeah, so just a comment through to Director Jenkins, I guess, look forward very much to seeing the multiplex evaluation and the Dodds Lake. It seems like as we do these and get, a nice rendition up, a lot of citizens look at it and say, oh, wow, look what we're getting. And of course, there's no decision made yet or what portion of, and then obviously it relates back to tax discussions and that sort of thing. So look forward to seeing those, and even the urban design discussion, which will follow. It all falls into the same thing. And I like to say, unfortunately, I think some people look at the pictures, don't do the surveys, and just say, wow, that's coming. And we all need to realize that. Thank you.
Okay, no further questions of the administration on these information items? If not, I would entertain a motion to receive this for information.
I'd so move, your worship, that we accept the report for information.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Manager Fullerton, you have the floor, sir.
Thanks, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. Very similar to the last report you just saw from Steve and Megan, just want to provide a verbal update on some of the things we've been working on over in the ECDEV communications side of things. So same again, I'll just breeze through these and hopefully be able to answer some questions or give clarification if you have any need for that after I've gone through them. So this is just an overview of things that are either on the plate at the moment or will be coming up in the very near future. So just a note there, it doesn't reflect some of our normal service levels and everyday functions as I've referred to them as. The one you see at the very top there is our ECDEV plan 2021-2026. So that plan largely has influenced the majority of the other items on this list. So as you know, we completed that over the course of 2020, and we've now got quite a bit of action in front of us in terms of rolling that out and implementing it and ultimately bringing it to fruition. So again, some of the items that you'll see in here, as well as, excuse me, the urban design plan that I think Megan's going to talk about shortly, all come as a result of that plan. The next point there, branding rollout. So as you know, Council approved last week a brand policy for the town, an updated, expanded policy that gives us a lot more flexibility in how we promote the town. So we now have further additional colors with which to communicate our organization. We've got some new imagery, some different graphic design elements and whatnot. So a big part of that is just going through where we can and starting to update and refresh some of our existing materials. So as you'll see, with the help of Ken and Vanessa, we've updated the council report tonight, or this afternoon rather, that being just one example of where we're moving forward with some of those new colors and whatnot that we have as part of that. The next item, of course, website optimization. So as you know, we did roll out the new website last week as well. We're still in the midst of what we're calling a soft launch at the moment, still working through some anticipated challenges that come up with new websites and new technology. For the most part, I think the initial kickoff has been quite positive. Obviously, things have come up here and there, nothing out of the ordinary or unexpected at this point, but we do continue to keep an eye on it and update and correct things as we need to. Next item, marketing plan. So again, just as part of the brand rollout last week, we do have an indication of a little bit more of where we want to go as a community, how we want to promote ourselves, to whom we want to promote ourselves, and the various channels and avenues through which we can reach those folks. So with that said, we're going to come up with a bit of a game plan on how we start to roll that out and execute it over the next little while, which does lead a little bit into the next item. We're starting to utilize video a little bit more in some of our communications, promotions. We do have some work being undertaken at the moment with a video production company to promote some of our activities that we have in the town, recreation, culture, those types of things. So that's underway. We should be able to provide you a little bit more information or updates on those, hopefully in relatively short order. Business support webinars. So we are in talks at the moment with a service provider to offer potentially a webinar or a series of webinars aimed at supporting local businesses as they navigate the COVID-19 pandemic and normal economic challenges as well. So that one's in the exploratory stage at the moment, but we do have some indication of the types of subject matter that could be presented as part of those. So very much in the planning stage just now, but again, hopefully should have some more information to relay to you soon enough. Commercial and industrial land inventory. So I know something that's been brought up by council several times over the past few weeks as being something that would be useful in helping administration paint a picture for council in terms of what's available and what's not in terms of commercial and industrial land. So we are currently in the midst of developing that. There's some little nuances here and there with respect to privacy that sort of dictate what we can and can't gather or collect in terms of data. Nonetheless, we are continuing to work through those and should be able to work towards something that will be able to, again, help paint that picture. More on the communication side, the Policing Committee 2021 engagement plan. So the Policing and Safe Community Committee, we are through communications working with that committee to roll out the engagement plan that they approved at the start of the year. So I think their intent, and I can't speak on their behalf, but really was to bring awareness to the existence of the committee as well as some of its goals and mandates over the course of the coming year and perhaps beyond as well. We do have an engagement scheduled for next Tuesday evening, March 23rd, if I'm getting my dates correct, which will see the committee engage with stakeholders digitally, electronically. So we do have a few registrations for that one at the moment. I think we've got 25 folks that have signed up just now and still growing. So we'll try and increase that over the next few days, but just one of several items that are planned as part of that engagement plan over the next few months. Leading into the next item, Interdepartmental Web Content Committee. So now that we have our new website and we're sort of working to roll that out, there's sort of an express need to make sure that we keep it up to date and fully optimized and fully leveraged going forward. So one of the means that's being explored at the moment is to potentially bring together a group of administrators here at the town office to meet regularly just to review the content and make sure, again, we're getting the best use out of our brand new website. Community Partners and Action Video. So that the Community Partners and Action Group, as you're all familiar with, tremendous group in the committee doing some, community rather, doing some really amazing things. So had the pleasure of sitting down with them for a Zoom meeting a few weeks ago. Some great discussion just to learn a little bit more about some of the things they've been up to. And we actually did record that discussion. So the intent is we're going to edit into just a bit of a highlight video and eventually have something that we can share on social media and through various other channels just to help celebrate and promote a little bit about what that group is doing. Lead mitigation communication. So a project that I'm working on through communications with Steve at the moment, and I maybe won't go too far into that one just now. I'm not sure how much is prepared for council's review. However, that's a fairly sizable one that we're working on at the moment. A resident welcome package. So working with Heather's department in finance, as well as some stakeholders in the community actually that have expressed a usefulness for to have some kind of a package that we can present to newcomers into the community. So if folks are moving to town and they come to the town office, do we have information or some kind of a welcome package we can provide them that gives information everything from taxes, utilities, local businesses, that type of thing. And is it something as well that we can maybe present to and share with local realtors that they might be able to pass along to prospective residents as well, folks that are looking to move into the community. The next couple of items are related to the media side of things. So we do have a draft media relations procedure that we've got prepared, just ready to share with the senior leadership team, and hopefully advance that one through the administrative process in the next few weeks here. Media training is something that's been on the docket for a little while as well. I think the timing of that one, I think right now we have it scheduled for after the election this fall. However, we can adjust that as needed based on council's desire. And then the final item, just at the moment, is an annual report. So just working with the various different departments internally to prepare a bit of an overview of some of the achievements of council and administration on a regular basis. We don't have a tangible framework for that one at the moment, but it's something that we're exploring, just again in that same spirit of celebrating some of the achievements of again, council and administration over the past year and beyond. So that's it at the moment. Happy to answer any questions that you have on any of these items or any others that you might feel are missing.
Councillor Barclay.
Your worship, through to Stuart. Great. Love the new website, by the way. Looks great. Question I had mentioned prior, the signage that we were looking at doing at the corner of McDonald's in conjunction with the partnership with the chamber. I know we put that off because of financial issues last year. We weren't sure how things were going to go with COVID. Wondering if about a dialogue around potentially an app instead of a sign, like with a screen. I'm only saying that because if you want to see the events that are taking place in Innisfail, you would need to be sitting at the corner of 50th and Highway 2A, right? Where it's not how people are doing things anymore. And I think there may be advertising opportunities that the chamber could take advantage of with that. And so not sure, like I have a chamber meeting this week and I was going to maybe, not sure how to proceed with this, but you know, about having some dialogue with the chamber around this idea. And not that I don't think we need a welcoming sign. I think we should have a welcoming sign, but maybe not with a screen on it, because I think, you know, for 50,000 or whatever the screen is, that we could maybe do something that would be much more attractive to tourists and events, like have events on the app as well that are going on in Innisfail that people could access every weekend. So.
Yeah, your worship, through to Councillor Barclay. Yeah, certainly great suggestions. Absolutely, and I think a lot of value in that. It is something that we have kind of lined up to explore a little bit further. And yeah, by all means, if we can discuss that with some of our stakeholder partners, such as the chamber, yeah, I think that would be great. So that's something maybe we can follow up on in the next little while. So, your worship, would you like me to mention it, Stuart, at the chamber, or just leave it, like, or will you do that internally, or? Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a preference as to how that engagement is carried out, but yeah, from my perspective, no concern. Okay.
Councillor Barclay, yeah, the Stuart, I think it's exploratory that the town is considering, well, is going to be researching opportunities using technology as a means forward for community events, advertising, etc. And just you can plant that seed with a stakeholder such as the chamber to see if there are some interest there.
Right. I know the sign came up, I don't know, maybe it was last meeting, it was just brought up that we'd had looked at doing that as a partnership, and we'd put it on hold for a year, so that year is coming up fairly quickly, and so maybe getting some other ideas out there to explore. Thank you.
Councillor Hale.
Yes, your worship. Just Stuart, I just wanting to know if, like, with having a residence welcome package, I know we have the town's been identifying those new businesses that are coming to town, you know, through social media or whatever it may be. Just wondering if potentially there would be some sort of a package that would be as well presented to a new business that comes to town. I don't know at what level, like if it's, you know, you do a cutoff at a home occupation one, or how that all works, but just something for food for thought, or maybe something that's already been in the works, maybe a little premature for me to bring up, but I just thought I would, I think it's equally important that a resident and as well business would be recognized. So just an idea is all.
Yeah, your worship, through to Councillor Hill, it's a good suggestion, absolutely. And I do believe there's room for some synergies as we create that package. So it's something we can keep in mind as we move that project forward. Thanks.
Okay. I had a bit of an idea too that I talked to Stuart about yesterday. Was I do feel it would be appropriate for council to do some positive promotion in our upcoming capital plan for the year and shed some light on the community, what we're doing. In spite of a pandemic situation, we're still moving ahead. And I thought, to do it somehow to work with these capital projects that we just looked at and work with Stuart and social media and put something together. And I'd like to see something that's verbal in a, I guess, some sort of a, I don't know, a presentation of some sort, but to involve all of council. Now, maybe we can take turns of talking about this next project we're going to get in, and maybe somebody's doing another project. I'm just trying to come up with some ideas to stir up some positive vibes out in the community out there, because I know they're looking for something like that. And social media has just got such an attention.
Would that be like a highlight reel, your worship? Something
Similar
just
to
kind
that,
of
yeah, anything.
hitting off on some of the.
I-
Okay.
Yeah, anything that we can brag about to the community, what we're going to do for them, and all in the. I'm open for suggestions, and so is I'm sure if you have any ideas, you can bring it up with Stuart. But if maybe I'm the only one that feels that positive about it, but I'd be interested to hear any comments, Councillor Young.
Yes, your worship. I think with the annual report, to build off of that with kind of hitting the highlights and to let the community what we've been able to do and build together through their support. And I definitely think that celebrating our successes is always a good idea. And I know it's a lot harder we use the term brag, but it's really what our community has allowed to happen and has endorsed. So I definitely would be in support of acknowledging our achievements.
Yeah, your worship, I would agree. I would even maybe like it even more so if staff was doing that, directors, CEO Becker, Stewart, et cetera. I mean, they're the ones that are doing the work and putting all this together. And they're the experts in each area. So when I looked at the list today from the previous report, it's like, oh, that's a lot of projects in a year, right? Over 30, you don't even realize it until you see a whole list of it. So yeah, I think it'd be great to get that out into the community as best we can and promote all the great work that's going on for sure.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. I totally agree. I've been saying for some time, we have to celebrate our successes, and if it's done on an annual basis, I'd like to see it done on a quarter basis. Just a quick. It doesn't take much to put on social media, and we do have the coverage in social media. And you just look at what was going on the weekend there. You're going to get the exposure. So I fully support that. Celebrating our successes. Thank you.
Well, I think the people are looking for that. They're looking for some good news to talk about. But anyways, we'll work with Stuart and Todd and come up with a game plan, right? Okay. Okay, thank you, Stuart.
Great. Thanks, Your Worship and Council.
Would someone like to move that we accept Manager Fullerton's report as submitted?
I so move, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks again, Stuart. Okay, urban design discussion.
Okay, so, yeah, so it's titled Urban Design Discussion, but I think it's probably a little bit bigger conversation with council. And I think there's probably three different components to this whole conversation. So I'll maybe just sort of go through what I see as the three big parts to this downtown and the ECDEV strategy. And then we can go from there. So the first being the update to the downtown ARP, and then the associated urban design guidelines or plan that would go along with that. So that project is intended to tick quite a few boxes, not only on administration's to-do list, but as well as things that were highlighted in the ECDEV strategy. So we've talked about commercial design guidelines in the past, promoting architectural and site design features clearly in the ARP for permitting, as well as for our facade program. As well, this update would take the ECDEV strategy and create concrete policies and requirements that allows for the consistent application by staff and remains in place in the long term as a statutory bylaw for the community. So I think the update to the ARP and sort of the modernization and some of that urban design, whether guidelines or plans or whatever that ends up being, as well as those graphic renderings that are identified in the ECDEV strategy. I think those are really gonna help. And when they get put into that bylaw, they're gonna be around for a long time. They're not gonna get lost. Once the 13 ways plan isn't the big thing we're talking about all the time. And it also translates it into language that staff are communicating to people when they're coming in to apply for permits, or when Steve wants to build something and I can show it to him. So we can certainly look at adjusting the focus or how we want to approach that. But I think there's definitely value whether it happens immediately or gets pushed down the road a little bit to formalizing some of those ideas and things into policy that will stay with the downtown. I certainly get the apprehension on the public consultation that it certainly won't be as dynamic as it could be if we're not able to meet in person. But so that's sort of the design and the ARP angle. I think the second one is around some of the quick wins that the ECDEV strategy highlighted. In the email I'd sent out to council last week, I'd included the link to a website called Tactical Urbanism. So this is an approach to incremental, fast, low risk type ideas, where you basically just try things, whether it's a pop-up cafe or they're things that happen now without a huge cost and commitment and pretty low potential to sort of mess up the grander vision. We don't do well with quick and fast and let's just try it. You could see from our reaction even to the, how are we going to paint the crosswalks? We go, that'd be really great, but who's going to decide what color? So, and I think that's the same reaction with the twinkle lights and those things that, we start to look at it and I still think we need somebody to come in with a bit of a design concept, even if it is for twinkle lights and crosswalks, that comes in and says, we'll put them here and do this here, that it's not us doing it and whose idea was that. And because I don't know. I think that's where we get caught up on those quick ideas. I got lots of ideas, but getting somebody to come in, we've talked about the vacant lot at Bankers Corner, or I see that the crosswalk that goes beside TNT and Collective House now. But I see pictures of people hanging umbrellas and I think, oh, isn't that great? But I think we may still need the support of whether it's a landscape designer or something on it doesn't have to be the grand project, but to come in and say, let's try this and paint this and fix that bench, so that we don't, make a total mess of it. So that's the quick wins side of it. And then the last part is the events component. So this isn't really within the urban design realm, but was definitely a highlight or a thing highlighted in the ECDEV strategy is, you know, what are we doing for events and what can we do to promote our downtown and the community as a whole by hosting these types of events. Again, we're struggling at this point to plan for too much with the ongoing COVID restrictions. But, you know, we're certainly looking to try to be able to react as soon as we're able to. And if there are sort of ideas or options that can still be achieved with our current restrictions or maybe even a little ways down the road. So yeah, so I think there's sort of three things at play because I sense there's some anticipation to, you know, let's get something done or let's have something that shows up, you know, this summer coming out of that plan. But yeah, there's definitely some apprehension to be the person who picks the color or picks where the lights go.
So I'm sorry, Councillor Harrison, you go ahead.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, I guess. So we need to hire somebody to pick a color. Like this is where I get to sort of struggle with this a little bit is who picks the color? And I don't know if we need to have a landscape designer to say we need green sidewalks or the twinkle light goes on this tree. I understand the whole concept of the design, and I think that's needed. But there are some things that I can pick a color for the sidewalks. Okay, now do we need a resolution? Like this is where I struggle with it. Or do we go out and we spend another 6 or 8 months with an RFP, with this to bring it in so that we can decide, agree with the consultant that says we should have green sidewalks? Like that's the struggle I have, Director Jenkins. Yeah.
And I think to me, it would be, you know, let's do the crosswalk or something, the crosswalk and the cut through there and have somebody say, okay, yeah, we need new benches, we need new this, you know, it doesn't need to take 6 or 8 months, but, you know, I don't know who decides or who comes up with that vision because I don't know that that's something that internally we have that, you know, professional input.
Yeah. Councillor Bates, I think, was ahead of you.
So this is an extension of the discussion we started last week, correct? So as I've sat and thought about it after, you know, last week and actually had one citizen come to me in between and say, whatever became of 13 ways. Yeah, I understand your dilemma and am more conducive to getting someone to help put those things together. Looking at whatever we haven't done, which there's still hints in Roger Brooks and the 13 ways that, anyway, my thoughts are that I understand where you're at. I'm not sure the total scope and whether or not we could help guide what the first 3 or 4 things that they looked at maybe, and maybe it's done in phases or something. But I do see your dilemma and I do see where somebody helping guide that would be very useful. Otherwise, whoever picks the first thing and doesn't do it just exactly right is going to get a lot of criticism. Thank you.
Councillor Eberger.
So my observation was going to be is I was going to wonder if that's how we ended up with ceramic tiles on the sidewalks downtown.
Exactly.
Because somebody just made a decision and didn't have any professional input into it.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm kind of leaning towards some guidance of some kind. So.
Your Worship, I don't know, Nike does have a slogan. Just do it. But I don't know, maybe, you know, reaching out to Doug and Heather, maybe they have some contacts. I know down in Ontario, there's people. They're called, I think it's called Your Rising, and so they work with communities. So they would, very inexpensively, they have completely decorated downtowns, Harriston and that whole area. And, I also think we have some very talented people in our community that would love to help out as far as kind of sprucing things up downtown in a, whether, you go to a business and you can say, well, here's a plan, would you like to do it? It's $250, a couple of planters, et cetera, and maybe some people in our community that are very talented at that could help with that. I also understand what you're saying, certainly about number one. And, number three, events. I also think we need to kind of plan for events, and especially outdoor events as summer approaches. But I would really like to see us do some things from that 13 ways. And I think I agree with Councillor Harrison in a way. I think we can, if we're going to do twinkle lights, I think we can do twinkle lights and maybe spruce up some other things through the corridor down through Darkwoods, et cetera, outdoor patios, offering that kind of thing, temporary patio possibilities for businesses where they're so crunch for space inside their restaurants and pubs. And I think it's just a matter of gathering people together and getting some ideas going.
I think what staff is trying to do, they're saying help because, that doesn't matter what you do, somebody's going to say, who the hell's idea was that? But I know when we did the downtown revitalization, we formed a committee, the street committee, and they put their heads together and came up with different ideas. And maybe some of them weren't perfect either, but at least it got some consensus, because I know Craig Teal at the time was very pleased to have that input, because it took the pressure off of him how to do this and that. So, and it doesn't have to be big ticket items either. Like the stuff that I think you're referring to doesn't need a whole lot of training. Like, it's not like you're trying to redo the traffic control or intersection traffic control. You're just looking at the lipstick and makeup for it. But anyways, I don't know, where do you think we should start, Mr. Becker?
If I could suggest, everything I've heard council speak to is referred to urban design. You received a report last week with that proposal. You can certainly dwindle that scope down based on your feedback, and maybe we come back to you with a few options of the scope. Because what I'm hearing, who picks it? Well, the community. That's what the engagement process is for, or you pick it. What's on your public participation? What do you expect on your level of public participation? So it is picking the color. However, the community that is associated with that development or project might have something they want to input on. So it's up to you how you want to proceed. But maybe we go back to the initial scope of that project, come back full scope, or we dwindle it down. There's tons of access to firms to help us. There's no shortage of that side. And we had, I think, 10 or 11 interested in supporting us, but it's either, if you want to do something, maybe it's not the level of scope that you were presented with. So maybe we come back to you with that.
Well, I'm sure even urban systems would be glad to come look at a reduced.
So your worship, through to Director Jenkins, the urban systems, the scope of that, was that to include your item number one as well? Or is that?
Yes, so that essentially just what I talked about with the number one conversation is sort of that plan, the taking the, what we have, updating our policies, bringing, getting those design guideline types of features in there, and going through sort of a full planning process. But if we wanted to, look at things outside of that could be done, in the next couple of months, that we could very easily have somebody come in and help us. I know lots of the examples even of that tactical urbanism, they are very often, they're community initiated things. They aren't us coming down and saying, oh, we're going to make a new patio. It's the community decided they need a new patio and this is
Okay.
what they've come forward with. You know, because even the initial research we've done on twinkle lights, sort of to do from 49th to Fast Gas, like we're talking, it'll be $10,000 by the time we get those lights and get them installed. So, you know, those types of things right off the bat, they're not nothing. You know, we just talked about
Yeah.
items in the surplus for that kind of dollars. So, you know, whether we're ready to budget and say, you know, go figure out how to do it. Because at this point, there isn't any actual money beyond that urban design plan project that has been budgeted towards those downtown initiatives.
So your worship, through to Director Jenkins, would we be able to maybe more so phase that project? I'm assuming like urban systems, would they do like item number 2, for example, or like that, would that company be able to do that kind of work? And
Yeah, they would. I probably would pick one of the others if I was going for just a straight
Okay.
design project. You know, urban systems definitely had the edge on that sort of holistic and integrated into all of your other activities, where there were certainly some smaller firms that are much more sort of design focused
Okay.
that I think could probably, you know, easily turn you around some ideas for how you would quickly implement
Okay.
something.
okay, thank you.
Councillor Eber.
Kind of circling back to the events, do we have anybody on staff that puts any time towards events? Like, I know in Penhall, they have a half-time position that, but I mean, does it just fall on Kane if there is an event, or do we have anybody that actually works on planning
Essentially right
events?
now, so Kane is our events guy, and in the absence of some of our recreation programming that was, you know, intended to be a shift to enhancing that, you know, COVID has certainly hampered our ability to really ramp that up, but that's why Kane's with us today, is to hear this conversation.
Because I think that's something that we've been missing, right? Is a dedicated events type system. And then the other comment was going to be as far as patios on Main Street, we brought in a policy for that, did we not? That I just don't know if the restaurants that are on Main Street are aware of that policy that permits them to do that patio idea if they, I mean, there's been some changes in some of the restaurants and stuff, so maybe it's time to put that out there if somebody wants to try it.
So yes, I guess in answer, yes, we do have the policy that allows that. Probably not the Maru restaurant may or may not be aware. Persia House was part of the initiation of that project, and they've had some ideas. I think they go back and forth onto whether they want to give up any parking for tables, that sort of thing. But it is probably something we could promote better. We have had a couple people take us up, you know, for their sidewalk displays, but none of the restaurants have pursued that approval.
Well, I think what I'm trying to get in my mind what we're looking for, but are we looking for administration to look at an adjusted scope of what we try and reduce the cost of it, but still retain a contractor to come in for a portion of it? Or is there a portion of a scope that we want to try and take on ourselves without a outside contract?
What I'd suggest, Mayor and Council, is maybe focus back onto what Megan's suggesting, almost like a tactical urbanism approach where you're starting smaller. We're going to get outside help, so we'll get some budget on that, but it's going to be towards a bigger plan. It can kind of feed in. So we're going to have professional advice on the onset, but scale it down. You have $50,000 in the budget, so maybe we can come down and maybe you can allocate it for maybe it's events and how do we best roll out events. But that's something, Megan, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think if there's appetite to divert or create a certain amount of budget for actual things that would happen in the next 6 months, That if that's identified, and then we can look at how we could potentially adjust the scope for that sort of downtown plan update, whether that's, if we do it in pieces, or if we just adjust to make it more of an update to the ARP, and get some of that design component sort of in these short-term projects.
Okay, I think, are we clear enough to ask administration to come back with a little more input or proposal for
Yeah.
reestablishing a scope
Yeah,
of a business that we want to take care of in the initial stages anyways.
I guess I would only just have the question on the events side as to whether there's appetite or to actually putting budget money towards
And
creating new.
I doubt you'll get any
events.
response as far as whether they will be approved or not at any given time in the future. Nobody's sticking their neck out too far to say, well, okay, after May 31st, it's wide open, or I don't think you're going to get an answer from anybody that you want to plan by, but
Your worship, that would be a yes for me on the events.
oh, I agree with you, Councillor Barkley.
So one quick question on the events, just for the thinking here, are we seasonally, or are we year round, or like, obviously there's lots of stuff out there that would pop back up in a heartbeat, like the soapbox derby and all. There is stuff that will happen when we can. I'm just trying to get a feeling for, I think there was some discussion about previously about how much of the year we spend in the cold. But so do we give them any direction, or just say, go give us a shotgun?
but I think we can have some chat. I think there's a couple of different approaches to events. One is your larger plan out events, whether it's Market on Main, so that's some coordination, or there's more social or more unstructured pieces to access our amenities, parks, for example. So I think that's maybe a discussion we could start, and then bring it back in for further evaluation, maybe onto Community Services Committee for some input. But we don't, to do a lot of structured events is very, very demanding. We can do it, but it does require community involvement. And again, there's restrictions associated right now, but still need to plan. But then again, more of that unstructured opportunities for community to participate.
Your worship, through to CEO Becker, when it comes to events, and when I said more events, I didn't mean town, but to be that kind of supporting role, right, to the event, like we so often are. And yeah, I think it takes those community champions out there to do the events. And, I've seen chatter, well, let's bring the Scarecrow Festival back. And that's great. So how do we accommodate, or how can we help bring people together in order to do that? There may be 10 volunteers in the community that would love to take that on. They may not even know each other, but does the town begin that process, or do 3 people get together and come to the town with that process? Like how do you see that working? And
Both ways, actually. If we have a focus through administration based on capacity, it can be generated internally, or it can be generated by the community. We support both.
Your worship, one of the ideas is kind of, and Director Jenkins pointed out again about the empty lot across from the Banker's Corner. And I just an idea that, if we could approach the owners of that lot, potentially just look at some sort of a rent to potentially try to see what they would want for a rent of that space. And then from there, we would be able to facilitate by, let's say, allowing the chamber to use that space to conduct whatever kind of or any kind of an event or something like that. But it's just, I know we're not in a position to potentially buy that by any means, but even if it was a trial and error and we tried it for a season to see if we would be able to use that and be able to fill it with enough food trucks or fill it with enough events that would justify potentially pursuing it further. But I just think that would open up some opportunities and just food for thought for everyone around the table. Just that idea may or may not work, but gives us some control.
Yes, I've talked to the guy. He said, make us a proposal. So, yeah, so if we wanted to lease it for a year, or if we want to, come up with something, whether it's
Okay.
chairs and benches and games and lights or that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's just kind of mobilizing and figuring out exactly what we would do with the space. So.
Okay, well, I think we've come up with a somewhat of a consensus what we're looking for, but we need your guidance, directed. Anyways, Jenkins, but I think right now is to get the ball rolling and get some definition of a scope before we proceed with another contractor or another proposal for a contract for your, similar to urban systems, urban design. Okay, do you need a motion? Okay. Would someone like to move that we accept this report for information?
I will do that, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Barkley. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Let's have a quick round table. Councillor Hill.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. The only real thing I had to ask today is, and I think I know I've gotten this information prior, but with the mailboxes being replaced, I know there was like the break-ins that were happening with some of the older style. There definitely has been some hot spots that were addressed, but I do know there's some other mailboxes that have not been replaced yet. And obviously I know it's just coming into that season to potentially do any kind of groundwork or whatever, but just wondering who we would discuss that with, or if that's even a municipal thing whatsoever.
In past years, they typically contact us and just tell us which ones they're doing. I haven't heard anything at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know if the communication goes the other direction.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure. By all means, maybe it says nothing to do with us, but one of the things that keeps on getting brought up is people they're getting afraid of sending anything or receiving anything, especially with the online culture that we live in. So, yeah, just a point of clarification.
I thought they'd all been.
No, there's even just some of the, personally mine are by the glass shop, but I know there's other ones that are, they're smaller, but look like the bigger chunks got replaced, but maybe the smaller banks are still to be done. But just wanted to bring that up. So, and yeah, that's about all I have,
Okay.
Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, so this morning I attended a Safe Communities Zoom, which is in conjunction with the training for the Policing and Safe Communities meeting, committee that I'm on. This Zoom is extremely good. From the one episode that I almost, I can't quite complete it because I have to get to this meeting. And thank you to Councillor Barkley and her technical support. I'll be able to post something on the chat next time. I didn't miss anything on it. I have MPC tomorrow. Also, this Thursday is the third Thursday of the odd month. So Red Deer River Municipal User Group. I did send an email out to everybody that I think that they will continue to monitor anything to do with coal and the headwaters of the Red Deer River, but I don't think they intend to get involved in any kind of a big way if there's nothing evident that might affect the Red Deer River. And I think they're somewhat cautious because on a long-term basis, they want to have the relationship with government to try to influence things for storage or for whatever, and so they don't necessarily want to take a political position if there's none to be taken on the Red Deer River. So I just throw that out there that I think that's there, and I'll know more on Thursday because we will talk about it some more. And then after 2 of those meetings, I'll be onto the police and safe communities. So I guess I have 1.5 days on Thursday. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt,
See you all.
Your Worship. I do have a commitment. I have a citizen engagement actually at 5.
Okay.
I'm going to step out, and Director Weimark, could you hold the realm? All the best to you, and I'm just next door. So thanks, Council.
No problem. Thanks, Don. Okay, Councillor Barton.
Thanks, Your Worship. Have MPC tomorrow. Then last week, Todd and Stewart and we met with Devon Knapsinger, Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce. It's the 3rd time that we have met. President Tyrell Robinson was unable to come this time, but there was some great discussion that went around the table. Stewart presented to them a collaborative effort potentially with the town's benefits program. Apparently the town has access to the program, and for businesses that pay tax in Innisfail, they also have an opportunity to access that program for their employees. So I'm hoping that there may be some uptake on that. I thought that was very interesting. Stuart also spoke about the business link and the opportunities there. Kind of talked around, economic development and things going forward. So it was a good discussion. The chamber just finished their strat planning. Devon was unable to attend session 2, and Councillor Harrison and I were both busy with other meetings that evening. We couldn't either, but I'm sure it was very good. Sounded like the first one was excellent. And then I also have a chamber meeting on Thursday, I believe, this week. So that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Reber.
So after last week's marathon meeting, I made it to the blood donor clinic. Got that done, but we got the unfortunate news that that's probably the last blood donor clinic that will ever be in Innisfail. They've rejigged the Red Deer Center. There's a clinic in Rocky Mountain House a week from today, and that's the last one. That's the last mobile clinic that they'll be doing there. Change their hours. The clinic in Red Deer has been open Tuesday through Saturdays, and now they're only going to be open Wednesdays through Saturdays with one more hour per day. And by adding 1 hour per day, they're adding 24 appointments a day. I'm not sure. The girls were a little puzzled to how the math works on that, but that's a consolidation. So it's unfortunate that they're not going to be doing the mobile clinics anymore. I also completed the training that Manager Leith wanted us to do. I got another certificate to put in my binder. I'm not sure but it looks nice. It was printed in color. I had to buy a new color cartridge anyway. So coming up tonight, I have a library meeting. Tomorrow, community services. And then just a question, I'm just curious if we had any public complaints today on election signs that went up on the weekend. And I know that's why Todd was scrambling out of here. I'm just, I went through and I read the policy on the weekend to make sure I was up to date on what I thought it said, and just wondering where we're at with that.
Your Worship, through to Mr. Reberger. Yes, I looked at my little sticky. My phone has been ringing off the hook today. So here's where we are. We have a election sign policy. That policy states that on no town lands, can they put it on town lands before 45 days. Private placement does size as well as interpretation as to whether the time limit applies to private as well. My problem is the policy does not have an enforcement component. Policies do not carry enforcement components. So I have a call into legal to see what we can do with this. Because the situation it would be is I cannot walk, nor can my peace officers walk onto private property and take down signs.
Oh.
So it has never been an issue before because we could not campaign a year before or 9 months before an election. So this one is now gone to legal. I'm assuming, I'm only going to assume that we would have to, or I would have to bring something back in a bylaw format that has an enforcement component to it. So the individuals that have signs up and those that are inquiring have been informed of this policy. The policy is the policy. It does say 45 days prior to election. So that stands as is. It's the enforcement part that ties my hands that I can't do anything with at this point in time. I can ask, right? I can ask, but private property has a little component there. So I was hoping for a response from legal today. I know she's very busy, but hopefully by tomorrow or Wednesday, I'll have a better idea of what should happen with this. We did a little bit of research. Most of them are not that we know of allowing sign campaigning until the 45 days or 6 weeks before election.
Your worship, but with the changes of this recent year, that's probably, there should be an amendment naturally anyways, correct?
An amendment which way to allow it?
No, like to either allow or disallow, like as far as, because if there's a circumstance have changed and you're allowed to announce you're running, that's obviously a byproduct. Signage is a byproduct of that. So,
Right.
So there should be, I guess it's not really a surprise that there would be maybe questions about that. So
Questions, but not follow through. So
Right.
when I looked over the sign policy, it still pertained to exactly what we would do. It was 45 days before election, before signage could go out. Campaigning of any other sort could take place January 1st. So social media, door-to-door knocker, flyers, things in windows, that can happen. That is allowable as soon as they change the timeline. The only thing that had a timeline attached to it was the sign policy.
thank you for the clarity.
So your worship, through the director, Mark, so with the, like before, back in 17, what was the nomination date? Was it July something?
No, it
What-
was September.
Was it September?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was within that 6-week period of election.
Was
So
it?
the
Okay, I
minute
thought it
you
was
could
different.
nominate
Okay.
and you filled in your papers, you could put your
Yeah.
signage out. So it always has been the 45 days.
Okay, I know some like places are 28 days before election day. I find it interesting. The federal election is maxed out at 50-day campaign period, and yet here we are in a municipality with 9.5 months,
Months.
basically from January 1st. Like, it's ridiculous. And I don't know, in the sign policy in section 3, I mean, to me, it doesn't differentiate between private or public land. And it does say in there, if you don't comply, right, that.
Correct. The unfortunate part, the C says all election signs on public and private property must be removed within 48 hours of the closing of the voting station. The town of Innisfail has the authority to remove any election sign that does not comply with the policy. It's that wording, and I have to get that wording either
Okay.
reviewed by law,
Yeah.
by our legal,
Yeah.
and get it changed to word exactly, so there is no misunderstanding
Yeah.
of what, where, and how.
Yeah, and it's obvious an advantage us for any of us who have announced early, it's an advantage for us, right? But to me, it's kind of like you're going to have a race and people haven't even entered the race yet.
Right.
And
The other component is what you as council want your municipality to look like going over the next few months.
yeah, I've
Um,
had feedback on that, like
right.
people are not happy with
Right.
That's
thinking
really-
about maybe 15 or 20 different candidates having signs out for months
Correct.
on end, like
What
they are
would that
not
look
happy.
like? Yeah, what would that look like? So it is a visual component as well that's attached to it.
Okay. Anything else?
Just to follow up on that, your worship, that's my only component. Because if you have all those other means of campaigning, go to it. I just don't want our municipality to look like that for 9 months. So that's just just
Right.
voicing my.
So I did reiterate to those individuals, do we have one? That you have one to comply by? So whether they comply, I guess, is to be seen. But however, in the meantime, I will get a legal and tighten. Obviously, we have to tighten this up a little differently.
Okay. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I certainly won't belabor the election signs discussions. I think it's been identified and it's being looked at. I also did the training through the elected officials EMA training last week. I've got MPC this Tuesday and policing on Thursday evening. And just for information, I was at the pharmacy this morning and they've started their vaccinations for COVID-19. So it's good. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have very much. We had an SRD, this wastewater board meeting, kind of an emergency meeting, but they wanted to discuss. We had an opportunity to sign a 5-year contract for power at 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So we went for a 5-year contract, which was quite good for the amount of power they use too. So we were happy with that. But anyways, I did have one question, and just off the top of your head, Megan, did I hear you say there was some new building permits? So our building permits took a jump?
Yes, last week. So, yes, we issued 4 new development permits in Bella Vista for single-family dwellings last
Yeah,
week. So that
Bella
was,
Vista.
yep. So that was good
Good.
news.
Well, that's encouraging. I'm glad to hear that. So, Stephen, did you have anything else? No? Heather? No? Megan? Ken, you got anything? No comments? The masked bandit back there. Kane, have you had any inquiries about events or special events are we having them or?
There's an appetite out there for it.
Yeah.
People do want to get going with it. And I know there's a lot of people who have great ideas and they'd love to put them into motion, but it's just not like, I think there's a lot of kind of planning, but there's flexibility.
Yeah.
But I think you will see a lot of people take big pushes and try some ideas maybe that they haven't tried before, and then kind of come back to a lot of the old favorites.
Yeah.
I know we've had a lot of people just stay in touch with us as well, whether it's, the street hockey tournament or you talk to the Lions or you talk to Kinsman about, like, we did do families, right? So kind of just say, okay, well, what does that look like when we come back? Well, let's try and figure out what the spirit of that is, and then maybe you can bring it back to the event later. So we're trying to keep, kind of fires going on a lot of that sort of stuff.
Keep.
Know until you get there. I think you will see a lot of people that really will want to get out.
I think so too. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kane. Stuart, you got anything? Huh? Vanessa? No? Okay, well, I think if there's nothing else for the good of council, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn at 5:07.
I think it's around 5:05. Yeah, 50, whatever. Thank you.